You're dead to us. Don't ever crawl back here again. My dad texted. Days after I refused to cover my sister's tuition bill, I said, you just slit your own throat. I collapsed their businesses, froze the trust, took the Monterey house, but what my grandfather left me changed everything. When I saw it, I didn't feel mad. I wasn't even sad. It felt different. Like a light inside me went out. The text arrived at 9:47 p.m. I had just tucked the kids in and sat on the couch, finally about to eat. The takeout was warm in the box, but I left it closed. An alert lit up my phone. It was from my dad. You're no longer part of us. That was all. No hello. No, we need to talk. Just 6 words, heavy like a judge's final order. I looked at the screen, waiting for more. Maybe a reason. Maybe even a bad joke, as awful as that would be. Nothing came. He sent it, saw it delivered, then went offline. I set the phone down, got up, and wandered around the house. No plan. I couldn't sit still. My stomach wasn't tight. My chest didn't ache. It felt like a click, like something finally fit after years of shaking in the wrong place. 2 days earlier, Sophia called and asked me to cover her next tuition bill. She was in year 2 of an MBA at Chicago and had already used up the family fund. I didn't refuse. I only said things were hard for me right now. My company was growing, payroll had doubled, and I had to cover a big shipment delay that almost wrecked our cash flow for the quarter. I didn't share details. I just said money was tight. She asked nothing. She didn't try to find another way. She only said okay and ended the call. That was on Tuesday. On Thursday night, my dad said I was no longer family. On Friday morning, I found a note. It had been pushed through the mail slot like a flyer. Plain white paper, no envelope. Do not come here again. It was shorter than the text and even colder. The ink was still a bit wet when I opened it, like it was rushed. I read it once, then read it again. Then I went to the kitchen, poured coffee, and began checking the numbers. First, I closed my side of the escrow. All the money we had locked in long projects was out. I signed away my share, removed my name from the business records, and sent the official release to the escrow lawyer. Next, the trust. My dad liked to boast that our family was held together by structure. He always said it like a warning. I emailed the trust officer, attached my withdrawal forms, and asked to be taken off all shared accounts, assets, and decision rights. By 3 p.m., he wrote back, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I didn't reply. I only sent the notarized PDF. Before dinner, I filed to separate from every joint entity that covered the Flathead Lake House, the downtown office they used for free, and the shell company I had quietly let them run their errors through. At 5:08 the next morning, Sophia woke me with a text, "What did you do?" I looked at it in the dark, still in bed, and let out a laugh. Not because it was a joke, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without asking. At 8:17 a.m., my mom's lawyer emailed me. "We need to talk today." So, I drove there. No notice. I just walked in. He looked like he hadn't had coffee yet. His voice was calm, but his hands told the truth. He shuffled papers fast and kept peeking at a screen that likely showed many bank alerts. He asked if I would pause the separation. He said it was moving too fast and maybe feelings were running hot. I told him none of this was about feelings. My part ended when they showed me I was only a source, not a person. What they didn't grasp, what they never even considered, was that almost everything they depended on came through me. Not only cash but setup and access. Even my dad's landscaping supply business ran on my personal credit line. He wouldn't have gotten a loan in his own name after the IRS trouble 10 years ago. Sophia's tuition was covered by extensions tied to my company's collateral. She didn't know my mom's nonprofit stayed alive because of monthly automatic deposits she likely assumed came from family funds. They didn't. They came from me, quietly and on autopay. When I first said I couldn't manage it, they pushed me aside. Now I was ending everything with them. I left the lawyer's office without shaking his hand. He didn't try to stop me, just said, "Please wait before making more choices until we speak again." I didn't give him any promise because my choices were already final. They just didn't know yet how much those choices would cost them. By Monday morning, the damage started to appear. Sophia was the first to react. Before 8 a.m., my phone was flooded with her calls, texts, and voice messages. One text stood out the most, "What have you done? My account's frozen. I can't even send my rent." I stared at it for a moment and set my phone down. There was nothing to repair anymore. Her Boston place was expensive. I knew that because I signed the lease with her 2 years ago when she decided living on campus was too depressing. On the 25th of every month, money from my personal account always went toward it. Not this time. That payment instruction was removed along with every other automatic transfer tied to me. At 11:12 a.m., Everpine Supply, Comerica Bank, J.P. Morgan Chase Commercial Services, called. A woman named Joyce asked if I was confirming the change to the company card. I told her yes. She paused, then asked if I wanted to notify the other card user. I told her no. They'd find out soon enough. The truth was, Greenspine wasn't my dad's business in the way he liked to believe. He might have started it, but the business loan, my signature, the supplier accounts I arranged through my connections, the corporate credit, all were under my credit profile. When he forced me out, he forgot the documents still said otherwise. At 1 p.m., Sophia tried again. Her approach had changed. No more shouting, just quick messages. All right, tell me what I have to do. I need access back, please. I didn't answer. In all the years I helped her, she never once asked how I kept it all running. She never wondered what it cost me. Whenever I hesitated, she turned it into an attack, saying I didn't care about her future. When I said I couldn't help this time, no one asked why. They just erased me. Now they were learning I wasn't a piece of their system. I was the system. By 3 p.m., my mom's lawyer called again, no longer calm. He asked if I'd agree to lift the freeze for a short time so the trust could be stabilized. I told him no. He asked what I wanted in return to negotiate. I told him it was too late. At 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with an email from my dad, "Fix this now." No greeting, no explanation, just that. It felt strange, like our roles had flipped. Now he was the one asking, but still didn't know how. He used to call me the quiet one because I never argued. I just got things done. I think he thought my silence meant loyalty, that I'd always stay, but it wasn't loyalty. It was self-control, and that's different. By evening, the family group chat was silent. Not even my mom posted her usual dinner table photo. That kind of silence used to make me feel left out, like I was outside something I kept funding. This time, the quiet felt right. I wasn't in that group anymore. Not because they removed me, but because I finally walked away. And for the first time, I felt no guilt. I felt free. By Tuesday, it wasn't just frozen accounts. It was collapse. Sophia called from a different number. I answered out of curiosity. She didn't say hello. Instead, she went straight to, "You froze Mom's charity account." She said they called her in the middle of a board meeting. She didn't even know the account was in my name. I stayed quiet. She kept talking. Said I was being cruel, said I was hurting people who cared about me. I waited for her to say something real, just once, but she didn't. The only reason my mom's nonprofit ever passed inspections was because I gave them my firm's auditing team at no cost. The reason they had a working website, a donor list, and even power to keep the lights on was me sending money each month, disguised as family help. They believed the money came from a shared trust. It didn't. It came straight from my business account on the first Monday of every month. That ended, too. By noon, my mom finally called. Not to ask how I was, not to discuss what happened, just to say, "I know you're upset, but you're tearing down everything we built." That word, "we," hit differently. She meant what I built, and I think deep down she knew it. She just couldn't say it aloud. An hour later, her lawyer emailed again. Subject line, "Urgent request to stop all action." He asked if I'd agree to pause any more changes. He said things were falling apart and they needed time to respond. I didn't answer because there was no pause when they told me I wasn't part of them. There was no hesitation when they sent that text. No warning when they delivered that letter. They cut me out without a single question. Now I was cutting them out with precision. That afternoon, I told the accountant to finish moving the shared assets. Everything under the family holding company was divided, and my portion was converted to cash. They could keep the Flathead Lake house but lose the Salt Lake City apartment. They could keep the warehouse but not the leasing rights. My dad wouldn't understand what happened until his delivery truck started getting turned away for unpaid balances. At 6 p.m., my old friend Lucas, who works in contract fulfillment, called me. He said my dad had just phoned him, confused and desperate, because suppliers were refusing new orders. "Did something happen?" Lucas asked. He said the payment systems weren't working. I told him they weren't broken. They were gone. That night, it was quiet again. But this time, I knew exactly what they were doing, sitting in their own houses, on their own phones, calling lawyers, accountants, and board members, trying to figure out how this all happened so quickly. The truth was simple. It didn't happen quickly. It started the moment they told me I wasn't one of them. Wednesday morning began oddly. I woke up to silence. No emails from my mom's lawyer, no texts from Sophia, nothing from my dad. For a second, I thought maybe they'd given up, that the chaos had pushed them into a stunned standstill. Then my assistant forwarded me an alert from our old shared cloud storage. At 3:19 a.m., someone tried to reset the admin password using one of my old backup emails. An address only 3 people ever had, me, my dad, and the trust officer. I checked the IP log. It was Sophia's. They were trying to break back in, but I had already moved everything to new servers with separate permissions. I hadn't deleted the old system yet because it still held one folder I called Frostline. It was my quiet backup plan, copies of contracts, money records, and internal memos. No one thought I still had documents showing things they'd done in my name years ago, under the radar. Things that wouldn't look good to the IRS or the licensing board. They must have hoped to get in, erase it, and pretend it never existed. Instead, they triggered the autolock. 5 minutes later, Sophia called, voice sharp, asking what Frostline meant. She claimed she hadn't opened it, only saw the name. But I knew her. She wouldn't have called unless she saw something that scared her. I hung up without answering. At noon, I got a text from the trust officer, the first message since I pulled out. It simply said we should meet in person. I agreed and went to his downtown office. He looked worn out. He told me the family had held 3 emergency meetings, each one more frantic than the last. My dad was apparently close to selling part of his business just to cover payroll. My mom had 2 people quit from her nonprofits board after they saw the frozen account. Sophia had already tried to get a private loan and was turned down. Then he said something I didn't expect. She tried to pin the charity's audit problems on you. I blinked. He nodded and told me she claimed I controlled the finances and was hiding things. But you weren't, were you? He asked. I told him no, I wasn't hiding anything. I was just finished cleaning up their problems. Then he surprised me again. He handed me a small black flash drive. This came from your grandfather's files. He gave it to the trust a few years before he passed. Said it was for the first one to walk away. I think that's you. I didn't respond. I just took it. When I got home, I plugged it into my offline computer. It held one folder, scanned letters, all personal, from my grandfather Henry to my dad, to my mom, and to me. He had predicted all of this. The control, the entitlement, the slow drain of money. In the final letter, addressed to me by name, he wrote, if you're reading this, you've already made the hard choice. Don't let them back in. Not again. Not even once. I sat there for a long time. He had been gone almost 6 years. Yet, he still understood me better than anyone else in that family ever had. So, I took his advice, and before the night ended, I made one last move. I transferred ownership of the only family property still partly in my name, the vacation house in Monterey, to a private holding company that I fully controlled. My parents used that house every spring. I changed the locks and sent the deed transfer confirmation straight to their inboxes. At 8:07 p.m., my mom called me for the first time all week. I let it ring. Thursday started off quiet. Too quiet. No emails, no texts, no voicemails, just stillness, like they were all holding their breath. Then, around 10:30 a.m., the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I knew who it was before I looked. My mom stood there, holding a bakery box. No coat, no purse, just the box and that familiar fake smile she used whenever she wanted something but didn't want to ask. I didn't open the door. I just watched from behind the curtain while she stood there for almost 5 minutes without knocking. At one point, she stared at the door like she expected it to open by itself. Then she placed the box down gently, smoothed her sweater, and walked back to her car. Inside were 2 blueberry muffins from that overpriced shop she never liked until I gave her a gift card there 2 birthdays ago. Under the lid was a note, "Let's talk. We miss you." I didn't even bring it inside. I tossed it straight into the outside trash. By lunchtime, Sophia had changed her approach. She emailed me, longer than anything she'd ever sent before. She said she'd been under stress, that we'd all said things we regretted, that none of them thought it would go this far. She brought up old family memories, stories from when we were kids, how she missed having me around. But what stood out wasn't what she included, it was what she left out. No mention of Dad's first message, no apology, just a softened version of events, like it was all a misunderstanding. And somehow, I shared the blame. At 2:50 p.m., I got a notification from the Monterey Properties smart lock. Someone had tried to open the gate with an old code. The last 4 digits matched my dad's birthday. They were testing to see if they still had access. They didn't. At 4 p.m., my dad finally reached out, not by email or text, but with an old-fashioned voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. "Son," he started, then paused for a few seconds. I could hear an echo, like he was pacing in a room. "We didn't mean for it to turn out like this. Your mother and I, we were angry. We thought you were abandoning us, but this isn't what we wanted." The message cut off before he said anything important. I didn't delete it. I kept it like proof. That night, I sat in the kitchen, looking over the restructuring documents. My wife was across from me, quietly feeding our youngest child. After a while, she looked up and asked if I was completely sure about going ahead with the last set of lockouts. I nodded. This wasn't revenge. It was acceptance. I wasn't tearing something down. I was showing what was already true. At 7:40 p.m., my lawyer called. His voice sounded amused, like he couldn't believe what he had just read. They filed a claim on the Monterey house, he said. Your mom sent in a handwritten note from 5 years ago, saying you told them they could use it anytime. I remembered that note. I'd written it on a sticky note during Thanksgiving one year, as a joke. Now they were trying to use it to claim ownership. They're desperate, he said. I told him to go ahead with the countermotion. I wanted every shared interest gone, not paused, not talked over, gone. The thing was, they thought this fight was about a house or a few frozen accounts. But the real damage had already been done. Not to me, to them. The longer it went on, the more people began asking questions. That night, I got a message from my cousin Emma, the one who always stayed out of things and watched quietly. She wrote, Sophia's falling apart. Your mom's acting like nothing's happening. Your dad hasn't left his office all day. People are starting to notice. I replied with one line, they wanted me gone. They didn't expect I'd take everything with me, but I did. They treated me like I was a problem. They forgot I was the one keeping the whole thing running. Now the machine was breaking, and they were realizing it couldn't be fixed. It was ending the way it always does, too late and too quiet. On Sunday, at 6:34 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it without checking the camera because I already knew who it was. My dad stood there, holding a large plastic bin full of old photo albums. He looked different, not older, not weak, just like someone who had been pushed out of his own story and didn't know how to write a new one. He didn't say my name. He just nodded toward the bin. Your mother wanted you to have these. I didn't respond. He waited. The air felt strange. Not dangerous, but awkward, like he knew he was in the wrong place and didn't want to admit it. I stepped aside so he could put the bin down. I didn't ask him in. He didn't ask to come in. Before leaving, he said, we don't expect anything. Just thought you might want to see them again. Then he walked away. Inside were thick albums, pages curling and sticky from age, pictures from childhood trips to Glacier National Park, me holding Sophia in a swimming pool when she was 3, my mom wearing huge sunglasses, laughing in the sunlight. It all felt like a museum now. Images of people who used to play their roles well but had stopped believing in them long ago. In the following days, the calls slowed down. The emails became softer. Even Sophia's tone shifted. She sent a long, careful message saying she knew I needed space and that things had gone too far. She didn't actually apologize, just hinted at regret, like it was something she wasn't sure she wanted to give. I didn't answer. I was finished meeting people halfway when they were the ones who burned the bridge. My mom began sending packages for the kids, books, puzzles, small notes with lines like, thinking of you all and miss my grandbabies. She never used their names. She never asked to see them. It was like she wanted to build something but had no idea where to start without instruction. One afternoon, Emma came over. She brought coffee, and we sat together on the porch. She told me the rest of the family was talking. Your parents are acting differently. Your mom won't stop talking about your daughter's birthday next month. She's making plans like she's still invited. She wasn't. I told Emma plainly. I didn't care if they acted different. I didn't care if they sent packages, put on fake kindness, or pretended to get my side. What mattered was what happened the instant I admitted it was difficult, only difficult, and they told me I was no longer one of them. You don't return from that. Not truly. That week, the court stamped the final ruling. The trust was ended. The properties were split apart, and every leftover tie we once called shared ownership was cut clean. Their lawyer didn't resist anymore. He simply signed the pages and left, likely worn out from pretending they still had any hold over me. The Monterey house was completely mine. The companies were fully divided. My dad had to sell off a portion of Greenspine just to cover unpaid wages for his staff. My mom's nonprofit shut down its main location and moved to working online only. Sophia moved into a cramped studio apartment and began hinting on social media about learning to live simply. Every channel they once used to get to me, whether through money, legal arrangements, or personal ties, was shut down, locked, removed. Even so, they began turning up in person. Not constantly, but enough to notice, dropping by without notice, leaving toys at the door, delivering handmade cards, wearing smiles that didn't match their eyes. Once, my mom offered to watch the kids while my wife and I were heading out for the evening. I told her no. She smiled and said, "Of course, I understand," but she didn't. The part that cut the deepest was how others started siding with them. Relatives I hardly spoke to began calling and telling me to forgive. They're trying. Don't punish them forever. Even Emma's face tightened when I told her my children didn't know their grandparents. But the truth was simple. They made the decision. They told me I was no longer one of them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I didn't argue. I listened, and then I accepted it. Now they want me to erase what happened because the results scared them, because now they have nothing left to grab. But I still remember how it looked when their hands were full, and they kept reaching for more. So these days, when they show up, I let them knock. I open the door. I thank them for what they brought. I tell them the kids are busy. I never let them inside. They now come in through the visitor's entrance. They don't sit at the dining table. They don't linger. They leave, wearing the same fake smiles they had when they lied straight to my face. And me, I sleep without weight on my chest. No midnight transfers, no guilt-heavy texts, no debts dressed up as love. Just calm. Just quiet. And that's worth more than any inheritance they ever imagined they could hand me.